And good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to February 18th edition, Wednesday, February 18th edition of Makers and Movers Podcast. How are you doing today, folks? Today, what are we talking about today? We're going to talking about fundraising without feeling gross and icky and all that stuff. So we're going to talk about that today. Should be a good show. They said the next couple of weeks we're going to kind of zone in on the fundraising spiritwear side of things because hey, spring sports are here. So let's see what you can do to put some money in your pocket this spring season. Now, if this is your first time here or long time here, and you know who you are, where you're from, what's in your cup, and what the weather is like in your area, along with your five things. What are five things that you are going to accomplish today? And with that, last night, a great show. Last night we made some rhinestone decals. Ooh, looky, looky. We made some rhinestone decals. There's the UV one. Oh, yeah. There's that band one that's got, what was it? The twilight and the shimmering sunlight, baseball, hearts. Yeah, we had a good time last night. So thanks for all that showed up for that. We gave away some good stuff. And don't forget next Tuesday, big show, giving away cameos. Hopefully, we'll give away plural, a couple cameos. So make sure to go, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and do all of that. So that way we are good to go with it. Now, let us check in and see how everybody's doing this morning. Gabriella, good morning. First one here. Hello. How are you doing today? Renee, it's beautiful outside. 55 degrees, sunny Chicagoland. It is bright out there. I loved it this morning. Water in the bottle, tea in the mug. Five things. They're testing laser materials, cataloging extra items, purging old blanks, grocery shopping, organized storage areas. That sounds like a good day. I got coffee in the cup. We got a good amount of orders to pull. Kids are out early, and I have mock-ups that we need to finish up for a store. That's what's on our stuff for it. Russelina, good morning to you. Doing dog collars and coffee in the cup. Very nice, Gabriella. Keith, hey, from the sunny Space Coast in Florida. How you doing this morning, Keith? And the sun is shining over there as well. Very nice. Good morning. North Central Minnesota, 30 and snow. I don't want snow. Hot tea in the cup, five things. Quotes, 3D printing, work on websites, spiritwear layouts, digitizing. Love it, love it, love it. BLC with Virginia in the house. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Renee. Good morning, Barb. Today my father's birthday. He would have been 88. Oh, happy postpartum. How does that? Postmortem? Happy birthday to your dad. As in us, no, we didn't get anything. We got wind and a little weather, but nothing crazy. It made noise, nothing like that. It was all radio, no TV here. Rustling's raining, 57 on the way to 68. Ooh, flurries and back in the 30s this weekend, right? I am right there with you. Apple juice in the cup. Oh, work on templates, setting a new PC today. Rustling's got a busy day there. Spring sports include fishing, openers, and tournaments. That's right. I've been quoting fishing spiritwear lately. We just had a discussion with that yesterday because our school has a bass team, and they can't take hooks to school because they're casting in the thing, so they have to have hookless lures to be able to do it. So it was something new to me. But yeah, it is that time. Good morning, chat. Good morning to you as well. Lonnie, hello. And Connie, good morning. 51 in Chicago. Right there. Coffee in the cup. Five things. Embroider hoodies, work on quilts, design work, invoicing and post. There we go. I just got 51 there in the Ozarks on the way to 70. Coffee in the cup. I'm working on team store orders and custom designs today. Love it, love it, love it. Yeah, I think we had a good time last night making all of these, and we gave some templates away and we showed off the different ones. And the reason there's two M's is so you can make mom, you can make a mom, or you could go wow, 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 mom, wow, right? There. Okay, I say we get into it because we had a busy day. The sooner we get you guys out of here, the sooner you get to start your day, and we get to continue on with ours. So, questions, comments, concerns, put them down below in this. We are talking about fundraising, and there seems to be like this weird tension that happens with at-home apparel decorators when the word fundraising comes up. I mean, that schools need money, that teams need help, that your spiritwear stores can solve that problem, and yet the second you try to talk about it, you start to feel salesy. It feels like you're pitching. It feels like you're, using their need for your own gain. It feels like you're asking for something instead of offering something. And I feel like a lot of decorators either soften it too much or they avoid saying it, clearly at all. And the problem is when you whisper about fundraising, customers just don't feel safe saying yes. And so we're going to talk about, kind of reframing fundraising so it doesn't feel like manipulative or desperate or gross at all. Because when it's done correctly, man, it is not pressure at all. It is straight leadership from your part. So, tip one, all right, you know, fundraising feels gross when you position it as helping you sell more. Let's start with the belief that creates discomfort. A lot of decorators talk about fundraising like this. We can set up a store so you can sell more shirts. We can do a fundraiser if you want. We can try to raise some money for you. And what does each one of those have in common? Well, that language centers on selling. It centers on volume. It centers on, moving more product. And when that's the frame of it, it just feels transactional. Feels like you're saying, here's a way for us to both make money, which, is technically true, but it's kind of a little emotionally off on it. Now, fundraisers, only feel gross when the conversation is centered on shirts, because schools, do they really care about shirts? Not really. What do they care about? Budgets. They care about covering costs of uniforms. They cover about paying for buses. They care about not asking parents for even more money. And when you talk about fundraising as a shirt strategy, you sound like that vendor. But when you talk about fundraising as stress reduction strategy, you sound like the partner, and that's the shift. Okay, so some examples of this. A PTO reaches out about Spiritwear. Apparel decorator says, we can add a fundraiser option and help to increase your sales. It sounds like upselling. Compare that to, hey, would it help if this store also generated money toward field trips so you don't have to do another bake sale? That reframes the purpose entirely. Uh, Another example, a coach asks for price on hoodies. And, instead of saying, hey, we can add a little padding to this to do some fundraising, you say, hey, most teams use Spiritwear to offset banquet costs. Is that something you're trying to solve this season? So now you are identifying a problem and not pushing a tactic. So, action step for this is let's stop mentioning fundraising, as a feature and start mentioning it as a solution to a known stress point that they have. All right. Number two, feels gross when you apologize for making money. Anybody ever got that one? Because another belief that can quietly sabotage decorators is you think you need to downplay profit to seem ethical. Profit is not a dirty word, folks. You know, uh, so people will say things like, we only take a small percentage. It's just a little markup. We don't charge much for this. And and it sounds humble, but it also sounds insecure. Fundraising becomes awkward when you act like profit is suspicious. You know, the schools already assume you're making money. The coaches assume that you're making money. The PTO assumes that you're making money. So the only discomfort that exists is because you are uncomfortable with it. And the truth is, fundraising works because you get paid to manage the complexity of it, right? What are you doing? You're handling the setup, you're handling the order, you're handling the production, you're handling the distribution, you're handling the customer service. This is work, real work, valuable work. And when you apologize for that, customers, kind of subconsciously question, whether it's even worth paying for. So, examples of this, a decorator says, we'll just add few doll hairs to cover the cost. And this sounds kind of like you're hiding something. Instead, hey, our stores are structured so that that programs earn money, and we manage everything from start to finish. That just sounds stable and easy for them. Another example, a PTO hesitates about margins instead of shrinking. Instead of shrinking, just say, hey, the goal is to make this low effort for your team and still generate meaningful funds. That's what this structure is designed to do. That's clarity, not defensiveness. Coaches are there to coach. Parents are there to be parent. Nobody needs to be chasing checks or trying to decipher handwriting or any of that. That's what you're there for. All right. Now, number 3 is that, it feels gross when you introduce it too late. And this is where some decorators, accidentally create that awkwardness. They wait until pricing is discussed. They wait until the store is already built. They wait until the customer asks about money. And they say, "Oh, yeah, we can do a fundraiser if you want." So, what's that sound like? Like an afterthought, like an add-on, like some sort of hidden upsell. And fundraising should never feel like a surprise, right? When you introduce it late, it becomes transactional. When you introduce it early, it feels intentional. And customers can feel a certain way, a little off when something appears to have been just held back from them. They feel safe when everything is just upfront and transparent. So, the examples of this is, a decorator builds Spiritwear mock-up and then says, by the way, we can raise money too. And that can kind of create some friction, you know. Now compare that to opening a conversation with are you looking just to provide apparel, or are you hoping that this supports your budget too? So that's clean and upfront. Hey, we can help with this. Another example, a booster just assumes that it's just merch. And when you say from the beginning, this can either be a spiritwear store or a revenue generator, your choice. They feel in control. Okay. So, action step for this is we want to introduce fundraising as a fork in the road at the beginning of the conversation, not as a bonus feature at the end. Now, before we get back into 4 and 5, let's see what you guys have to say and what's going on in there for it. Alania's got water in the cup. Water. I go through a lot of water a day. Debbie, good morning to you. Jerry, hello. Barb friends and all the tier to be friends. Barb says fundraisers are a good way to upsell other services your business offers. Absolutely, absolutely. Let's see. Fun. Oh, there. Love heart. What did I miss in there? Fundraising. Is that dorky? No. I know a lot of people that use that fundraising. Who just hit with the right audience, Jerry. Yeah, it all goes. Remember, you got to know your market and know your people. There's certain things that you wouldn't offer to certain people, and just how it goes with it. Barb says, I've been upselling to the fishing groups besides regular caps. I mentioned coolers, boat towels, koozies, embroidered fishing vests. It gives options. Absolutely. Absolutely. Is that audience for people, Renee? That's $1 million question. When you have a niche, you can go all in on it. And Barb says, after last night, rhinestone decals are a good add to fundraising. I know, Barb. We should probably, wonder if we have a fish on there, a bass. We could probably figure out something if there's not. Now you're giving me ideas. See? I don't like when I get ideas on it. All right. Let us get back into this. Remember, coming along, I want to hear what your thoughts are on all these. Am I on point? Am I way off voice? Am I off base? Remember, these are just my thoughts, feelings, opinions on things, and I'm not by any means an expert, but hey, I'm giving my thoughts. I want to hear your guys's. So, tip 4 is, it feels gross when you sound desperate, and it's an uncomfortable one. If you need that sale, fundraising, it starts to feel like pressure, right? Your tone changes. Your pacing speeds up. You really start to over-explain stuff, Jerry. You push urgency that isn't real, and customers can feel it. Desperation makes fundraising feel like extraction. Right? Calm will make fundraising feel like structure. When you're calm, fundraising sounds like this. Hey, here's how this typically works. When you're ready, we can structure it this way. Most schools choose this because it reduces their workload and generates them money. When you're desperate, it sounds like this: we can do anything. Yeah, we'll just make it work. Hey, whatever you need. All right. So that first version, feels stable. The second one can feel a little risky. So some examples of this, decorator scrambles to secure a store and promises unrealistic timelines to make things attractive. What's that do? Because it all comes crashing down. It erodes trust. Things didn't work they were supposed to. Now you compare that to calmly stating what's possible and what's not possible, and then just letting your fundraising program speak for itself. Right? Number two, or example two, a coach senses panic in pricing conversations and just shops elsewhere. And it wasn't because of the price, it was because of the energy. So, for this action step, slow your tone, you know, slow your tone down when discussing fundraising. Calm sells better than craziness. Calm sells better than craziness. And as we wrap this up with number five, fundraising stops feeling gross when you see it as leadership. And this is a big reframe. You're not asking for money. You are just structuring opportunity for them to make money. Okay. Schools and teams are constantly fundraising: candy, popcorn, cards, books, raffles, bake sales, baskets, donation drives. The list goes on and on and on. And to be honest, most of these are super inefficient. Most of these require numerous volunteers, and most of these create zero long-term value because they bring in, you know, small amount of money. Now, fundraising, especially spiritwear fundraising, done right, that creates identity and revenue. You're not pitching, you're organizing. And when you own that role, that discomfort's going to disappear because leaders do not beg, they present structure. So, examples of this, a PTO feels relieved when someone brings a plan instead of another fundraising idea. They do not want another task. They just want a system that they can just say yes to and it's done for them. Another example: a coach chooses a decorator who says, here's how we run this from start to finish, instead of the one that says, let me know what you'd like to try. We have our set things in every store, and they say, here's our set stuff for it. Is there any additional products that you're thinking of? Oh, I didn't know there was other options. Okay, what kind are you thinking? We can do it, but we have it set ready to go for them. We are there to lead them through it. Now, to recap all this, right? Fundraising, fundraising feels gross when you center shirts instead of solving, their stress. It feels gross when you apologize for profit instead of owning your value. It feels gross when you introduce it late instead of leading with clarity. It feels gross when desperation replaces structure. And it stops feeling gross when you see yourself as the one that brings order to the chaos. So, if fundraising conversations have felt uncomfortable in the past, it's not because you're manipulative. I got to stop using big words. It's because you're just framing it wrong. When you make that shift from selling products to reducing stress to presenting structure, you stop feeling like a vendor and you really start sounding like the obvious partner for people. And when that happens, fundraising doesn't feel gross anymore. It feels necessary. Now, that's what we have for you. Questions, comments, concerns, throw them in the bottom because we would love to hear what you have going on with that. We do this every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. So make sure to go like and subscribe and boost and whatever else is there. Um, Friday, what do we talk about? Spiritwear pitch. That doesn't sound salesy. So we're going to talk about, you know, we're going to talk about that, because I feel like most at-home apparel decorators, you've got production down, right? You know what needs to be done, but you struggle with the moment before production starts. When you have to message people, when you've got to talk to people, whether that's a team mom or local business, and say some weird stuff. So we're gonna talk about all of that on Friday. All right. Let's see what else we have in here going with this. Let's see. A bass or better one is a walleye. Well, let's look into it and see what we can find. I don't know what you're laughing about, Jerry. I don't know. G, good morning to you. Fundraising doesn't have to feel awkward. Like Rhinestones, every little bit adds sparkle and makes big pain. That's absolutely right. The comment about a Spiritwear store versus fundraising store is a good one. Love it. Love it. Love it. Melanie said, thought, trying to get a meeting with an admin team over the summer. School is not in session. And you can talk about the schedule and how the store can be a year-round revenue generator to support the budget. So it can, and here's what we found. When we've kept stuff open longer than that 3 weeks, the sales don't add up. We do it 3 times a year. We'll do one, right when school starts, and then we'll do one, there in November, December, so they can get stuff for Christmas, and then a spring one. The beginning of the year one is always the best. The Christmas one, that one's the Christmas, it's okay. And the spring one is kind of there because, at the end of the day, kids are going to be out of school in 2 months. And especially in elementary type schools, it's hard because your kids are going to grow out of it. So that one's there. Now we do run the ones with the different seasons. When we've had it open for a full season or a full year, the sales just kind of trickle in. There's no, I need to order now if I want it because, I can wait till next week. I can wait till next week. I can wait till next week. So that's why we create that. Hey, here's where, here's the specific start time and end time and everything that can be done with it. Now we start our fall conversations in May, April, because we try to hit them before they go out because teachers will take that month off and then they'll start like for ours, they come back the last week of July, I think is what it is. And so we try and have everything set before they leave from school, before they do anything. We're a season ahead. That's what you're trying to be. Like get everything going before the season starts when it comes that way with it. And Alana said that admin has more time in the summer during the year, create partnerships as an underlying support from start to finish. Yeah, for like one of our schools, it took us 3 years to get in there with it. And because there's somebody in the PTO that they already had a person. That's just what it is. You'll run into that. New PTA, new PTO presidents come in, they have their people, and you're gone. You didn't do bad work. You didn't do anything. They just have their people, and that's who they go with. A lot of times, their people don't perform like you do. They don't have the system set up like you do. They don't have fundraising stores ready to go. And then what happens? Something that had been run smoothly for years is now a clunky mess. You're there to solve the problems on the next one. All right. Let's see. I agree that instead of being a vendor, be a partner. Yeah, being a partner opens up so many doors. We donate so much to the school. We help out the different organizations, especially like the underserved ones. Like cross country will always be near and dear to my heart because yeah, I may be a fat ass now, but I used to run. I used to run like miles upon miles a day. Then I realized they had cars and you could drive places, but that was years ago. How can we help those ones out? Because football, basketball, baseball, those get the budgets, those get the flashy uniforms, those get everything with it. Those other ones don't. Well, hey, let's help you raise some money because a little organization, $500,000, and then what we have ran into is say there's the robotics team where there's only 6 kids on there. Nobody wants to work with them because it's just 6 kids. Well, hey, what happens? Those 6 kids, they order stuff. Their parents order stuff. They are excited because holy moly, we can actually get our own cool stuff with it. We've picked up a lot of B2B sales from that because the parents, oh, you guys do this? Yeah, we can help you with that. Oh, well, I own a business. Can you? And then it leads to that. So you're offering solutions for those underserved ones that don't get the cool stuff. They just have the stock. Here's the school logo, and underneath it, it says robotics. No. Let's create your own stuff. So get into it and go from there. All right. Anything else that we have for you today? If not, we'll wrap this up and get out of you. Mentorship community, your call starts in about 34 minutes. We will be over there for that. Remember, we do this every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. So don't forget to sell decals. Sell decals. So we can rock, you can rock and roll those. Little heart decal. Little rhinestone. You know, you can do that. Okay. With that, you guys have an amazing day. And until next time, peace, love, press on, and we will see you then.